Russian President Vladimir Putin has promised North Korea trade and security not controlled by the West. It came in a letter published Tuesday by North Korean state media, where Putin pledged his unwavering support of the isolated state. That was a day after the two countries announced that Putin would visit North Korea for the first time in 24 years for a two-day trip beginning Tuesday. Putin's letter said, quote, "We will develop alternative mechanisms of trade and mutual settlements that are not controlled by the West and jointly resist illegitimate unilateral restrictions. And at the same time," he added, "we will build an architecture of equal and indivisible security in Eurasia." He also thanked North Korea for supporting what Russia calls its special military operation in Ukraine and vowed support for Pyongyang's efforts to defend its interests despite what he called, quote, U.S. pressure, blackmail, and military threats. There have been some signs pointing to what's on the agenda for Putin when he visits. Commercial satellite imagery taken ahead of the visit showed preparations for a possible military parade in downtown Pyongyang. Russian media said there will be one-on-one discussions between Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and Putin's foreign policy advisor said Russia and North Korea may sign a partnership agreement during the visit that would include security issues. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller repeated charges this week that North Korea had supplied weapons to Russia for use in Ukraine. Moscow and Pyongyang have denied arms transfers. After North Korea, Putin is set to spend another 2 days in Vietnam.
Joe Biden and Donald Trump are set to meet for a televised debate on June 27th unlike any other. One accuses his rival of being unhinged and a danger to democracy.
It's clear that when he lost in 2020, something literally snapped in the sky.
While the other accuses his opponent of being senile and corrupt.
He can't talk, he can't walk, can't find his way off a stage.
With months to go until the November 5th presidential election, many voters are still undecided. That raises the stakes for the debate, which many may view for possible moments of drama, rather than for policy discussions between the Democratic president and his Republican challenger. Here's what to look out for in the first presidential debate. Biden and Trump, at 81 and 78 respectively, are the oldest candidates to ever run for president. Both are known for their tempers and impatience. They're used to commanding the stage and have both been president, which means they'll likely see little reason to yield to the other.
The left. Will you shut up, man? Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Biden rattled Trump during their first debate in the 2020 race, leading Trump into what was viewed as a poor performance.
I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting than he has.
Well, that's all right, but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less than
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on.
This time, Trump may try to get under Biden's skin by mentioning the recent conviction of the president's son, Hunter, on lying about his drug use to illegally buy a gun.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown.
But Trump has to make sure not to come across like a bully to moderate voters. For Biden, it may be tempting for him to play up Trump's recent conviction for involvement in a hush money scheme, but one expert said that could allow Trump to paint himself as a victim of political persecution.
I just went through a rigged trial in New York.
For Trump, the danger lies in saying things that underscore Biden's argument that he's a threat to democratic norms. For example, he suggested he'll use the Justice Department to target his political enemies.
When he says he wants to be a dictator, I believe him.
Democrats point to Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election and his role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Political experts say both candidates should focus on issues that hit home with voters, like the high cost of living. Both Biden and Trump could be rusty. Trump refused to participate in the 2024 Republican primary debates, a decision that did him no harm, as he easily beat all his rivals for the party's nomination. Biden also has not been on a debate stage in almost 4 years. The debate takes place in Atlanta, Georgia, on June 27th hosted
A
by
wildfire
CNN.
burning northwest of Los Angeles since Saturday has forced the evacuation of over 1,000 people and burned over 14,000 acres, according to authorities. CAL FIRE says some 400 firefighters equipped with 70 fire trucks and 2 bulldozers are battling the post-fire in Gorman, Southern California, which is only 2% contained. Scorched vehicles and debris was all that was left of this tyre shop in the area. CAL FIRE said Monday that the post-fire is edging closer to Pyramid Lake. They noted that efforts to contain the blaze have been hampered by high temperatures, low humidity and strong winds, forecast to continue through to the end of the week. Firefighting aircraft hauling water are trying their best to stop the fire's forward progress, while those on the ground are drawing up perimeter fire lines in an effort to get the blaze under control.
This is ReachBot, an insect-like robot being designed to explore the challenging terrain of caves on the Moon and even Mars. ReachBot will be able to scan its surroundings and identify graspable points on rocky surfaces, similar to the mechanism of a multi-fingered hand. That could let it explore places currently out of reach.
So the end goal, at least for planetary exploration, is to go places where no robot has been able to go before.
ReachBot is being developed by the Biomimetics and Dexterous Manipulation Lab at Stanford University. Before it can be used to explore caves out in the solar system, researchers tested a ReachBot prototype in California's Mojave Desert. There, it confirmed the bot's ability to identify and securely grasp multiple sites, demonstrating its potential for future planetary explorations. The cave-crawling robot is equipped with sensors and a contact-before-motion planner, enabling it to scan its surroundings and identify graspable features on rocky surfaces. Stanford University mechanical engineering professor Mark Kakowski explains the idea behind the design.
ReachBot, at least in part, is inspired by animals like the daddy longlegs, which has a very small body and very long limbs or appendages. The thought was, well, what if you could have a robot, a small robot about the size of a suitcase, let's say, that has extremely long limbs, that it can reach out and grab the sides of the cave with grippers and then manipulate itself by alternately attaching, retracting, and extending those limbs.
Researchers are experimenting with different prototypes, which so far features a small body and long extendable appendages with grippers. The Mars-ready robot will have custom-engineered extendable booms, but its prototypes start out more modestly, using tape measures. Here's Tony Chen, a postdoctoral researcher working on ReachBot.
And these arms are made out of space booms. Just imagine them as a 3D tape measure. They coil up really small and they can extend really long. And then at the end of each of these boom, you have grippers and maybe additional sensing element where you can see where you're grasping more closely and also gripper actually interacting with the surface.
Further prototyping is still needed, but researchers say something like the ReachBot could play a big role in space exploration.
How do you get yourself down into a lava tube or a cave? These are, by the way, very interesting spaces to explore. They're relatively sheltered. If there are any signs of previous life, that's a good place to look for them. Also, if we're thinking eventually about human habitation, that's a good place to build a shelter because you're protected from some of the radiation and from some of the extreme.
China has opened an anti-dumping probe into imported pork from the European Union. The step comes less than a week after Brussels announced new curbs on electric vehicle exports from China. That was due to growing alarm over Chinese industrial overcapacity flooding the EU with cheap products, including EVs. China's Commerce Ministry said the investigation, which was announced and commenced on Monday, will focus on fresh, cold and frozen whole cuts of pork and pork byproducts. The ministry added that the probe was prompted by a complaint from the China Animal Husbandry Association on behalf of the domestic pork industry. The European Commission announced on June the 12th that it would impose tariffs of up to 38.1% on imported Chinese cars from July. Global food companies have been on high alert for retaliatory action from China since then. European Commission spokesperson Olof Yill.
The answer is no, we're not the least bit worried because not all subsidies are the same. and any subsidies that take place under the Common Agricultural Policy, or indeed in any other policy area in the European Union, are strictly in line with our WTO obligations, and we put the strongest possible emphasis on ensuring that this is the case.
Spain is the top supplier of pork to China, and its pork producers group, Interpork, said they would fully cooperate with China's investigation. European pork producers should be able to keep exporting to China tariff-free while the investigation is underway. Customs data showed that in 2023, the EU accounted for more than half the roughly $6 billion worth of pork China imported, around a quarter of which was from Spain. Pork suppliers from South America, the United States and Russia could be among those gaining market share if Beijing restricts imports from the European Union. China's Commerce Ministry said that the investigation should be completed by June 17, 2025, but could be extended by another 6 months if required.
An Indian man accused by U.S. prosecutors of orchestrating an unsuccessful plot to kill a Sikh separatist on American soil pleaded not guilty on Monday to murder-for-hire conspiracy charges in a federal court in Manhattan. Nikhil Gupta also was ordered detained during the hearing. Records from the U.S. Bureau of Prisons show he's being held here, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. U.S. federal prosecutors allege Gupta plotted with an Indian government official to kill Gurpatwant Singh Panun, a U.S. resident who advocated for a sovereign Sikh state in northern India. Last June, Gupta traveled to Prague from India and was arrested by Czech authorities. Video released on Monday by the Czech police appears to show 2 New York police officers escorting a handcuffed suspect at the airport in Prague. Czech Justice Minister Pavel Blazek said Gupta was extradited to the U.S. on Friday. The discovery of alleged assassination plots against Sikh separatists in the U.S. and Canada has tested relations with India. India's government denies involvement in such plots. Canada said in September its intelligence agencies were pursuing allegations linking India's government to the murder of Sikh separatist leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar last year. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met India's foreign minister on Monday to discuss bilateral ties between Washington and New Delhi. New Delhi has long complained about Sikh separatist groups outside India, viewing them as security threats. The groups have kept alive the movement for Khalistan, or the demand for an independent Sikh state to be carved out of India. Last month, Washington said it was satisfied so far with India's moves to ensure accountability in the alleged plots, but added that many steps still needed to be taken.
Toyota chairman Akio Toyoda has survived a shareholder revolt at the carmaker's annual general meeting. 2 leading proxy advisors had recommended voting against his re-election amid a spate of safety and testing violations at the company. The grandson of the firm's founder, Toyoda remains hugely popular among Japanese retail investors. He's also been praised for steering Toyota through another year of record profits and strong stock gains. While that meant Toyoda faced little chance of not being re-elected, insiders were concerned that a significant vote against him could be an embarrassment. Exact figures on the result won't be released until Wednesday.
グループ内で問題が発生しておりますことに対しまし
Toyota was forced to issue an apology after Japan's government began probing violations at the parent firm and group companies, including small car unit Daihatsu. Earlier in June, officials from the Transport Ministry launched an on-site inspection at Toyota headquarters. The auto giant said it had wrongly conducted certification tests on 6 vehicles, 3 of which are still on the market. It has promised steps to prevent any recurrence of the problems. Toyota shares have fallen around 10% since the latest revelations came to light, but are still up 18% or so this year.
Monday marked yet another record closing high for both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ as technology shares continued to rally. The Dow added about 0.5%, the S&P 500 gained more than 0.75%, and the NASDAQ climbed nearly 1% to notch its 6th straight record close. Joy Yang is head of product management and marketing at Market Vector Indexes.
So we know that investors are still very much focused on AI. And this is despite some very cautious guidance from the Fed, which, we're starting to see inflation coming down, but it's one data point. So we're not seeing a trend. And in fact, the Fed is projecting that we're moving towards potentially only just one rate cut. And despite that, it seems like the stock market is very optimistic. We're still seeing all-time highs, whether it's the S&P, NASDAQ, and even our semiconductor index at all-time high, as well as our AI, machine learning, and quantum computing index at all-time highs.
Shares of Apple added roughly 2%, while Microsoft added more than 1%, both stocks rebounding from earlier losses. Chipmakers gained, with Broadcom adding almost 5.5%, Micron Technology up more than 4.5%, and U.S.-listed shares of Taiwan Semiconductor rising more than 2.5%. NVIDIA, however, declined more than 0.5%, retreating from a record high. Goldman Sachs lifted its 2024 year-end target for the S&P 500 to 5,600 from 5,200, while Evercore ISI raised its forecast for the benchmark index to 6,000 from 4,750. Both brokerages cited technology strength and enthusiasm for AI as reasons for lifting their targets. This week's economic data includes May retail sales, housing starts, and the S&P Flash Purchasing Managers Index. Markets will be closed Wednesday for the Juneteenth holiday.
และในที่สุดเลิฟเพนค่ะขอบคุณมากค่ะสมัยสามัญประจำปีครั้งที่
Lamentablemente llevamos ya 11 personas fallecidas, 11 adultos, 3 menores. Estas fallecieron lamentablemente el viernes 14, tuvimos, como ya lo habíamos indicado, los primeros 2 que fallecieron, lamentablemente un hecho en el que se estaba extrayendo arena, se acercaron a un talud, como ya se los había comentado, y pues el talud cayó sobre estas personas. Inicialmente el primero falleció instantáneamente, el otro fue rescatado, atendido, pero al final pues lamentablemente terminó falleciendo.
הממשלה הזאת חייבת ליפול, היא הממשלה שהביאה את המחדל הכי גדול שהיה בישראל, והיא הממשלה שהמשיכה עם מחדל אחר מחדל עד לרגע הזה, בכל זירה, ביחסים הבינלאומיים, במדיני-ביטחוני, בכלכלה, בהחזרת החטופים והחטופות, בצפון, בשמירה עלינו, במה שהם עושים למשטרה. כל מה שקורה פה יחד הוא צבר כל כך גדול של מחדלים, שפשוט צריך להגיד להם, כשלתם, תלכו, אנחנו נתקן.
קודם כל אני שמח שהגיעו המונים ואני מקווה שתהיה לזה המשכיות. צריך לשים מצור על ירושלים, צריך לשים מצור על הכנסת, צריך לסגור את המדינה כדי להפיל את הממשלה הזאת.
está